Hello everybody. I'll apologize for the glasses and my right eye being kind of extremely red and odd looking. I had to yank my contact lens out this morning. I think something got in my eye because it just like... Okay, so today I'm gonna do a tag because I kind of miss doing them. This one is actually kind of relevant because I was asked actually a few of these questions pretty recently. And this is the How I Read tag. It's a series of, I think, 7-ish questions. Essentially, it's just going to be talking about reading habits and things related to that. So let's dive in, shall we? How do you find out about new books to read? Several ways. I work at a Barnes & Noble, so I'm surrounded by books and the new reads. I see them every time I walk in. Oftentimes on my breaks or on my lunch, I'll just kind of wander around the store and see what's there, or I'll look into the database and see what's coming out. Second way is through BookTube. I watch a lot of booktubers and I like seeing what they're reading. I recently started getting back into more young adult fiction because I'd kind of given it up for a long time, with the exception of a few series, and so it's helping bring me back into books in that genre. And then the third and fourth way I do it are basically other places on the internet. So I'll filter through Amazon and see their editor's picks, top 20, their new releases, and then I'll also do things like Goodreads or the Book Depository and other things, and just kind of look and see what's new or what's getting reviewed a lot. And that's usually how I find out about new books. How did you get into reading? Birth. I've always kind of been a big reader as long as I can remember. I'm really the biggest reader, I think, out of my whole family, at least here. I've always been the bookworm, the big reader, always just wanting books for birthdays and Christmases and everything. And that and movies. I never really wanted anything else. But I also remember loving being told stories before I got into reading. So, my mom and my dad would read to me. My grandparents would tell me stories. So I had all these stories I would always get told as a kid. And so when I found out I could actually read the stories myself and have it in my head and just let my imagination run wild, it was like diving into the deep end and never looking back. How has your taste in books changed as you've gotten older? This is kind of an interesting question because I've always kind of read above my age level ever since I was a young kid. Not to sound like I'm bragging or anything, but I always read books where, when I was in 5th grade, Gone with the Wind was my idea of, I'll just read that in a week, no big deal. That was just how I read. There wasn't any real rhyme or reason. I mean, I did have a preference, and I definitely still do, for things that are fantastical or fantasy. It doesn't necessarily have to be epic fantasy. It can be urban fantasy as well. So I've always kind of had a preference for stuff in that. I think as I've gotten older, I've shied away from a lot of things that are contemporary reads, with a few notable exceptions, and then I have a tendency to now go and read a lot of kind of more academic texts for fun. Instead of reading, Dan Brown's Robert Langdon series, which I would read for fun, I would then also go and read Joseph Campbell's studies on myth and on how it has developed through the years, or I'll read lots of things on Shakespeare or anything like that. Whereas when I was younger, I would have had a harder time reading those academic texts, and I would have read a lot more things that are considered contemporary. How often do you buy books? Probably more often than I should. With the exception of a few books that are coming out in a series later this month, or a few things that I pre-ordered that aren't released yet. I've sort of put myself on a book buying ban. I'm not going to buy anything new. I'm going to finish up what I already have. It always used to be I'd buy books when I was burning a gift card, or if I really needed something to read and I didn't have anything. There was a time when I once didn't have a TBR pile because I'd finished everything. That so totally doesn't exist now. How did you get into BookTubing? Through S by J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst. That was the first book I think I read where it had been recommended to me, and I picked it up and I enjoyed it so much I just kind of had to make the video kind of spouting all my enthusiasm for it. It was just one of those things where words weren't enough, and initially I was just sort of recording them and keeping them private and putting them out on my blog where I talk about books, and every now and then I'll put an attempt at something intellectual with them. In terms of this channel here, it was me continuing it and kind of actually for the first time starting to do edits and not just let it be this one long rambling video. I mean, I was already well aware with YouTube. I've been a part of the bidding community since 2004, 2005-ish. So I was well aware with how YouTube worked, but I'd never done it where I sat in front of the camera. It was always just me and my computer playing with other people's footage. How do you react when you don't like the end of a book? In a couple ways. First off, as with something like Beth Revis's The Across the Universe trilogy, I'll just go, well, that was a massive disappointment. Other times I might, swear really loudly or really badly. And in the worst case scenario, there's one particular book I was so angry at its ending that I threw it across the room. Because for me, the ending is paramount. It's something that I say all the time because it's so true. I mean, if you muck up the ending, you can affect my entire view of the book, or in some cases of a series. As I said in the case of Beth Revis's Across the Universe trilogy, my overall review or rating out of 5 went down an entire point because I hated the last 2 pages of Shades of Earth, and my rating of Shades of Earth went down 2 star points or whatever because I was so angry with that ending. And even now I look back on that series, and as much as I liked so many things about it, that ending is what stands out as this massive dark stain in my mind. How often have you taken a sneaky look at the back page of a book to see if it's a happy ending? More often than I probably should. I kind of do it really now if it's the case of a book that I'm reading and, I'm kind of a good way through it, but I'm going, I really don't want to finish this. Why am I still reading this? And so I'll just skip to the last chapter or last 10 pages and read those and then shut the book and be perfectly happy. Unless the ending gives me some reason to want to go and actually read that large chunk that I've skipped, I usually just then put it away. In terms of books that I'm really enjoying, I don't like to do that because I like to keep the mystery and I like to keep going, but I have been known to do that. I feel like I should apologize. But anyway, yes, this is my How I Read tag, and until next time, cheers you guys.